On this episode of Athletic Training Chat, we have Mitchell Barnhart, who is the creator of atfreeceu.com. He's one that I've come across before, but didn't realize the whole backstory on it, which Mitchell shares. Talk about hearing some griping, some things that people want to change, and somebody taking the initiative to go and do that, which is pretty cool, and showing that you can have a significant impact for some work, but not necessarily a lot of cost. I think he even notes it on the site. It costs him $12 a year to run, which I'm sure is just the domain fee for that. But really interesting backstory on how he got involved in it and really focusing on it and what he's done so far in his career, and really where I think it's going to keep going. I'm excited to see what Mitchell does in his career with everything. So look forward to sharing that with you. This episode brought to you by Wave On Health. If you listened to the previous episode with Adam Halpern, really interesting concept that could hopefully and really looks like it has an opportunity to help shift the game with athletic training if you're down staff or need to add additional resources that can really be useful that your current staff could use if there's not in the budget for a full staff member. Would be worth checking out, I think. So just mention that we sent you when you connect with them, but check out their website, see what's going on. Everything's just getting started with them, but a very, very bright future ahead, I think. And as always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Thank you to them for supporting us and everything we do. We look forward to getting more of their cold tubs, recovery tubs ready and out as we don't need them right now, but are planning for next summer and into the fall. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Well, welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We are on with Mitchell Barnhart, who is an athletic trainer in the secondary setting, also teaches. We were just talking about that off recording. But in addition, has set up a site for free CEU opportunities for ATs, which if you're listening to this, I've got to imagine somehow you've come across it. And given the world of CEUs, and this will be out prior to renewal season finishing. So if you are listening to this, check it out. It's a great resource, makes life really easy for looking for those things. But before we get into kind of talking about what started that, what brought you to doing it, I will turn it over to you to kind of fill in your background and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So, like the traditional athletic trainer origin story, I got hurt, spent a lot of time with the athletic trainer, got interested. I actually ended up not making my high school lacrosse team. And my dad suggested that I stay on and be the manager for the team. And that's really kind of where the spark sort of happened. I managed a lacrosse team. The athletic trainer asked me back to help him out with football that next summer. And then throughout the rest of high school, sophomore through senior year, I was the manager / athletic training student for football, basketball, and lacrosse. I think through athletic training, I actually almost failed out of high school. They almost kicked me out. I went to a private high school my sophomore year. I somehow turned it around junior year, and ended up being an actually decent student the rest of the way through college. Went to undergrad at Castleton University in Central Vermont. A lot of people know Ed from Castleton.
Yeah.
He was my preceptor my senior year. Pre-child Ed. We had a lot of fun that year with football. And then I applied to grad school for athletic training and I got into two places, Ohio University and AT Still, and um, OU told me they didn't have a GA position for me, and AT Still told me they would look for one for me. And so I decided to go out to Arizona. AT Still worked with Dr. McLeod on a lot of concussion research, which I'm still doing. And I'm still here now 5 years later. Got my master's in athletic training, got my doctorate in athletic training. So I've went the whole way with
Fair
AT so
enough.
far.
And then still pursuing research, so keeping yourself busy, to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I do research. I volunteer with the Arizona Athletic Trainer Association. I work on the kind of AV side for our annual clinical symposia. Same thing with the Rocky Mountain Athletic Trainers Association. It was actually funny. The way I got involved with RMATA was the president of RMATA was visiting during AZATA, and they saw how I had my setup for AZATA, and he was like, "Wow, could you like do this for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me look at my schedule." And it so happened that RMATA fell on spring break for work, and so I was like, "Hey, I can pop up." And so now I also do stuff for RMATA for AV. So trying to bring all of the states in the district as well as the district up to a level of accessibility that anyone in the district can view or get CEUs through the RMATA, make it as accessible as possible, because by land area, RMATA is the largest. I'm sure you can get into the Northwest District with like Alaska. You can get in a debate whether or not there's actually more distance, or like the district with Hawaii and
Sure.
Guam. Yes, but contiguous land area, RMATA has the largest land area.
Sure. Well, I may have to pick your brain a little bit after the episode on some of that, as those are always ongoing discussions to try and figure out how to get that more accessible for everybody. Um, so yeah, you've got just a little bit of things going on, a couple different things, yet at the same time, kind of thing that we were going to talk to is you created a website,
Mm-hmm.
atfreeceu.com. What inspired you to start that? And if I was looking kind of through your own personal website, you've
Mm-hmm.
been 5 or so years certified.
Yep.
So still, young, if you will, in the profession.
Yeah.
But what inspired you to start that?
So I was in grad school in class, actually, and we were talking about maintaining certification, and there were arguments about, oh, it's hard to like maintain certification, and like it's expensive. And I got tired of hearing that argument. And my professor, Dr. Anderson, did say, well, there's free CEUs out there. It's not, you shouldn't have to pay for it. And so I had heard other athletic trainers when I was in clinical practice have these same gripes. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go and see if I can find the free CEUs and find them. I went on the BOC website, and the BOC website to find continuing ed was difficult to use at best, and continues to be difficult to use. I would say they made an update a couple of years ago that I think makes it less easy to use. But that's another gripe. So I just went through and looked at all of the providers that listed on the BOC website CEUs that were available for free. I went and kind of sort of double checked, make sure that like they're actually listed for free and you can actually like sign up for them, because sometimes institutions will have like internal ones that are listed for free.
Yep.
And so then I just put those up, and I think the first year that I did it, it took me probably about 2-3 days to get through all of it. Now I go through about every 6 months and just go through again. I have a backlog, a list of providers that used to provide free CEUs, and check and double check to make sure that either they still are or they no longer provide free CEUs. And I just update it. So the first year I did it, I think there were 150 free CEUs. So it was well over what anyone needed for the minimum requirements.
Sure.
And I think last year we peaked at like estimated like 350 were available. And I think this past June we're sitting at like 230 something. So more than enough if you really can't afford to purchase CEUs, or you can't afford an NATA membership. There's more than enough continuing ed out there for free for you to be able to access it. And the BOC search tool sucks, but I put it all in one place for people, and about every 6 months, if you come back in December or July, it should be updated with kind of the latest links and the latest numbers.
Got to imagine it's a little easier now that with the EVP has been removed. Does that make things a little more streamlined in terms of trying to find stuff?
No, I think it's the exact same. I think really the only difference for me on my end for my website is I just took off the little marker that I had on some websites that offered EBP, but
Sure.
there were enough free EBP CEUs out there also for athletic trainers, I think, at the time, if I recall.
So this is going on just a little bit more beyond CEUs, and I'd be kind of curious, even from your perspective. I've been in the profession 13, 14 years. I kind of have my own personal bias towards some different things with CEUs, but you've gone down and looked for a bunch of them, especially the free ones, and have taken probably a deeper dive than most, unless you work for the BOC. Maybe you've taken a little deeper dive. What is your personal preference for CEUs?
So I really like to get hands-on with stuff and actually develop new skills.
Sure.
I could do that through AZATA or ARM-ATA symposia. However, I work the whole time for both of those. So I really like to get hands-on. I really think that the direct instruction, lecture-based CEUs, while they can be useful, I don't think that they serve athletic trainers very well, and I don't think they serve the medical professions very well, because you're not, sure, you're learning new information, you're learning foundations. If we're talking about policy, sure, that's a fine method, but if we're really trying to up our skills, develop our skills, make sure we're better clinicians through continuing ed, I think you need to be hands-on. I think you need to really understand where you lack in your delivery of care, and work on refining or improving the areas that both interest you or areas that you aren't as good in. And I think that while I haven't used it, the BOC has, I think it's called professional goal appraisal. Essentially, it's the way it's been explained to me is you take a practice exam and they find the areas that you're lacking, and there's no like, okay, well, you didn't pass, so we're going to put your certification in jeopardy. It's these are the areas you need to work on, and you need to set yourself a plan to improve those areas. And so I think doing that for yourself, and doing hands-on skills-based CEUs are going to be the most valuable for us to do moving forward, as there are a significant proportion of athletic trainers who don't have a lot of the skills that these new grads are coming out with. They're able to suture, they're able to do a lot of more joint relocations and joint reduction dislocations, able to do IVs, and all of those require hands-on learning in order to master them. And so I really think that we need to get hands-on, hell, even with with doing evaluations, like learning new special tests that come out. Like, you really need to get hands-on and practice with those. And I think we do a disservice to ourselves and our profession if we just sit in the lecture hall and learn about how to do them rather than actually doing them.
Yeah, that's one I've had a lot of conversations, and I knew how I was going, like, certifications, letters behind your name, is it worth it? I don't think it's necessarily about the letters. I think you can make the argument that as a younger professional, sometimes going and seeking those out can be beneficial, just because it helps build up your resume to set you apart from everybody else who maybe finished with a master's degree, or now, people getting their DAT. I think that's another example. It's taking you another level,
Mm-hmm.
on that. And so, as you get further into your career, do you necessarily need all those things? No, I would argue you wouldn't, but I agree with your point of keeping up those skills of learning something new, even if you don't necessarily use it full time. If you, I'm not going to try and ruffle too many feathers, go and take a cupping course. Great. Like, whether you believe in it or not, you at least went and heard somebody. And, the same thing, you watch people pick up an iStim tool, and I'm not saying any one specific way is the right way. And obviously a lot of it comes around marketing. And if you can take one course, you can probably figure out the rest of it on your own. But you at least learn from somebody who's gone all in on it to at least get some ideas. And so I also agree that the hands-on can be really beneficial, not only just early on, because a lot of, like you mentioned, people are getting exposed to that. I remember seeing iSim for about 2 hours in my undergrad in coursework. That's it. And we rarely saw it used in the clinic because it was new-ish, at least in terms of becoming a little bit more mainstream. It didn't get used very often, but just no idea. And then got to grad school and just started going to work and didn't really know what I was doing in hindsight.
Right.
You see people beating the crap out of people with them, and maybe that's not the way to go. But yeah, I agree. The hands-on is essential because you at least can take something back and see how it fits within your own way of practicing.
Right. And of course, that kind of course delivery takes smaller class sizes. It takes conferences. You have to probably have more sessions of those. But like, if you're really going to deliver that content and athletic trainers really want to take back what they learned, like, you need to get hands-on with stuff. Like you said, you practiced for 2 hours in your undergrad program, and is that really enough for you to be really competent? I'm sure you went to school with maybe 12 other people. And so, the individual instruction, the hands-on, the learning, the technique, the feedback, all of it really need to, ensure that you're comfortable with the skills that you're developing so that you can implement it in clinical practice and know that, you're proficient enough to use it appropriately.
Agreed there. Again, you've looked at a lot of different CEUs, and just seeing it, not that you've taken all, 230
No, I
of
have not.
them, but at least kind of seeing titles and different things.
Mhm.
And do you see any trends or that you don't necessarily agree with, or like a lot of people now that some more things have come out, who's gotten selected for NATA to speak next year, and there's some
Mm.
maybe some grumbling that always comes if it's not about ACL or certain things like that's the kind of the staples, quote unquote, if you will. Where yes, CEUs to some are meant to be that exactly that
Mhm.
professional development, continuing to advance your skill set. Whereas others, and I get that it happens, and it's happened to me, where you're behind, you need to get some done, and maybe you're not taking things that really are developing you. You're checking
Mhm.
off the box, which again, no judgment pass. I've been there, I've done that, I
Mhm.
understand. I'm fortunate enough to work with some research people, which help check some of those boxes a little quicker, just with submissions of material. So please
Sure.
don't think I'm preaching to the choir, because I definitely am not. But what have you seen? Does there seem to be, from at least titles and any of the descriptions you've gone from, are a lot of these free ones really focusing on kind of maybe driving people forward, or does it seem more like kind of rehash of some of the same things that over and over, just across different areas?
Um, I will speak from the courses I know best, which are those from the Athletic Training Practice-Based Research Network. Little biased. Um, Full disclosure, I work with the folks over ATPBRN. I'm currently working on a research project with them, so I am slightly biased. Dr. McLeod is my mentor and continues to help me through our latest research project. But uh, I think what ATPBRN is doing um, is actually trying to deliver course materials and content um, that can help elevate and help enable athletic trainers to elevate their clinical practice, and is it delivering content that is needed for all of us to advance our clinical practices. I think that more broadly across, there are some people doing some really good work around trying to advance our clinical practice. There's certainly a couple of providers that I can think of off the top of my head. There's Andrew's Sports Medicine lecture series from Children's Health. They, from the titles I've seen, they are really focusing on like surgical stuff. Really good for, I feel like, athletic trainers and physician practice. And I think there's even some really low cost continuing ed that we can leverage in that category D, where you have sites like Radiopedia, where once again for athletic trainers, more so in like the physician practice, where it's around reading x-rays, MRIs, interpreting results, what's normal, what's not normal. And then I think for someone like myself in the secondary school, there there's a lot out there. Like there's, I be quite honest, uh, hmm, there's a lot out there. There's probably something you can find that interests you. But more broadly with trends, um, I think that um, there's a lot of rehashing, and I think that comes with limitations from the delivery mechanism that you have to deliver course content.
Sure.
Um, but there's some people out there doing some really good work, and you can fill your requirements with stuff that's rehashing and stuff that um, you know is kind of back to basics, and there's other stuff out there that is really going to advance your clinical practice. I remember I just watched the last CEU. The last course I watched before submitting was diagnostic lecture series on knee injuries. And I think those are really valuable, that NATA has put together. I saw in the latest magazine, there's a new one on the lumbar spine one that I know that I'm going to go and check out. But, there's some people doing good stuff. There's some people rehashing. There's some people
Sure.
mailing it in so that they can, get more CEUs so they can present, and then they get, was it 10 or 15?
Yeah. I
But,
understand that. I would quick shout out because you mentioned like the Radiopedia, which I'm going to check out.
mm,
But also some of those ones that are more surgical. Having been someone who worked in the university's collegiate setting for
mhm,
a while, and now I've been in a physician practice supporting a surgeon for the last year, and then just in general the last couple of years.
mhm,
Those can be invaluable, even if it doesn't seem like it applies to you in the kind of quote unquote traditional setting. I would be able to go back and be so much better at my evaluation skills just from watching a surgeon talk about how they do their eval, how they put the whole picture together, from the MRI and the X-rays. It can be really good where you're just kind of putting, connecting dots by seeing it from a different perspective. So I would highly recommend like don't forego those just because it doesn't feel like it applies to your setting. I would have done the same thing, but man, I would go back and just treat so many, shoulders, for example, just knowing what commonly is just almost beat up on everybody in some form or fashion. And when something screams, oh, wow, this is surgical versus no, not really. We still got to figure out
mhm,
how to manage this with rehab and
mhm.
so just a little shout out to anybody who's maybe not looking at those. I don't just write them off. I think you can find a lot of utility in those, even if they don't seem to fit.
Yeah. And I I I think that's where um our kind of base education comes in. Getting off on a tangent, but like, the number of patients that you probably see in clinic supporting a physician is probably about as many patients as I see in a week, right? As many patients you see in a day, I probably see in a week. And Going on my soapbox here a little bit, I think that we need to get more athletic training students in the physician clinic for longer hours to get them more reps. Like the
Sure.
number of patients that I see with an ACL tear a year is maybe one, two
Yeah. Yeah.
maximum,
Yep.
but the number of patients probably you see in clinic with an ACL tear is probably maybe one, two a week.
Depending on the time of year. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, getting those reps, I feel like is really important. And I feel like that's where we can fill a lot of gaps if we, as athletic trainers ourselves, and as um, a profession as a whole, if we really support and lean into um, leveraging the physician clinic to give our students those reps can make all of us better. I spent over break, I spent this last, we had fall break, and I spent 2 full days in physician clinic following our physicians. And I got, more reps on shoulder and knee injuries than I probably would have seen in a month or 2 here. And so, I'm planning to go back during winter break and get a couple days in clinic with them, try and make sure that my skills are, I'm really like focusing on something that I specifically want to improve. And even if I can't get hands-on with patients, I'm still going through my head while the athletic trainer, the physician, is asking questions, and I'm running through, my little flow chart in my head about, all right, what is this patient experiencing? What is the diagnosis? Are we coming to the same diagnosis? What's the strength that they're showing? And I think, we all have to have, except in a handful of cases in some states, we all have to have physician direction, and leveraging your relationship with your team doc could become really valuable to improving your clinical practice, even if it's not through formal continuing ed, leveraging that and utilizing that resource to advance your skill set.
Agreed. It's been a game changer for me, and one I wouldn't have thought early in my career. Definitely not when I was a student. We had to do some shadowing, and it was my least favorite shadow part of it. But anyway, anything else around AT free CEU or just CEUs in general that we didn't touch on that you wanted to cover?
I think that moving forward, for a lot of athletic trainers, we talk about certifications and learning and development. I think that if an athletic trainer out there is thinking about getting a advanced degree, thinking of some of the athletic trainers out there who have been previously educated under, the post-secondary, or post-professional master's programs, where you may not necessarily have gotten a master's in athletic training, looking at how the kind of micro credentials fit in to what you're doing and what you want to go for. Full disclosure, I'm a graduate of AT Still University, their DAT program, and I kind of fully drank the Kool-Aid with all of them, and think that they're the bee's knees. But like the things that they're doing over there with micro-credentialing, and you can take like individual courses on orthopedic management, ortho labs, like the way you talked about, the way that being in the physician clinic changed how you practice. For me, understanding labs, understanding reading imaging in 2 classes that I took completely changed how I think about like gen med stuff with some of my kids with like chronic injuries, where I can sort of identify with some of them that, you have had continual stress fractures, and it's probably time that we get you labs, and you're probably going to get labs. And then lo and behold, the physician orders labs, and, the patient comes back to me with what do these labs mean, and me being able to sort of interpret them and, give them an understanding of what's a normal range, has helped me more efficiently, I think, communicate with patients and help them understand what the labs mean, what what does it mean? Where are they seeing this fracture? Where are they seeing this injury? Where are they seeing this sprain on, the DVD that they bring back with their MRI or their X-ray? Has helped me better communicate to patients like what's going on, what is the physician seeing, where are they seeing it, why are they saying this? And I think that the kind of pathway of education we have now in athletic training is really beginning to be a real health profession where you can go from your master's program into a residency and potentially into the one fellowship program that's out there. I think that it seems to me like we're finally gaining some steam in pay and respect, and with how the development of the athletic trainer is becoming more of a health profession and less of a glorified strength coach. And knowing the gap between helping the public understand the gap between what an athletic trainer is being a health professional and just taping ankles and giving water and stuff.
Sure, I agree with you there. Jumping into the AT chat questions, you may or may not have just answered this one, but I'll see if you want to summarize it a little bit more. Where do you see the athletic training profession going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think us as a profession, we really need to lean into those residency programs. I think we really need to lean into that advanced education. I know there are probably a number of people who will disagree with me that we should shift to a terminal degree. Certainly it hasn't necessarily panned out. I think for PTs, they still have the same gripes about getting a terminal degree, and it's not, necessarily increasing their pay. But I think where we are right now as a profession, and where our education is going, I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think we're headed in the direction that is going to be a positive force for change, where I learned when I was at the Winter Institute for AT Still for my DAT. It's like a 4-day intensive course. Dr. Eric Sowers, who is the current president of Katy, when they were redesigning the athletic training program in the early 2000s at AT Still, and they're doing their self-study, he was thinking about athletic training residencies and fellowships in the early 2000s, probably way before we thought about this transition to masters, and that should still be a couple of, what was that, like a decade or two after we transitioned to bachelor's requirements, if I recall that correctly. So I think we will see in the next 5 to 10 years if the bet on the masters really pans out. And from what I've heard from some program directors at their master's level already, is that their retention is higher. They're getting students who actually want to be athletic trainers rather than using it as a jumping board for going into another health profession. And I think as evidence in the NCAA's report recently on their meeting with They met with NATA, BOC, and Katie on the current state of athletic trainers in the collegiate setting. They saw that, and they were informed that, athletic trainers aren't being paid, and they're, getting burnt out, and the NCAA institutions around the country really need to look at paying athletic trainers in the collegiate setting like healthcare providers, because we are healthcare providers. And I think a lot of institutions are waking up to that right now, where they're not able to hire athletic trainers for the rate that they used to be able to pay. And so, I think with the advancement of residency programs, with fellowship programs, with terminal degrees, I think we're going to see an advancement and move of athletic trainers up market. And I think with that, we're also going to have to realize that if we move up market, other providers are going to move up market, become more advanced in their skills, and we're going to have to relinquish some of the lower skill stuff that we used to do, that these other providers who are also moving up market will, quote unquote, take from us. But we're really, moving up to higher skill, higher advanced, more complex tasks in order to provide more value.
I agree with you there. Again, only been in the profession formally, certified for 5-6 years. But what advice did you go back and give yourself as a young athletic trainer, and if you could set when that would be?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I feel like I'm so young that, like, there's not a lot of advice I give to my younger self of 5 years ago.
Must mean you're doing things pretty well then too. You kept yourself busy, not gonna lie. Like, if I were to look back at like everything that you've explained that you've been a part of, and I look back at my early start, is all of those things I wish I would have had more awareness to take advantage of, because I just didn't. I didn't look for it. I didn't pay attention, and you just feel like you got put behind. So that would be my personal takeaway, and is always the advice I would have given myself, is take advantage of all the opportunities and actively seek them.
Yeah, I think I in my first 2 years of formal, or no, excuse me, my third and fourth year of clinical practice, when I got my first real big boy job, I think I stretched myself a little too thin. I was putting in extra work that I might not necessarily have needed to do, or that was appreciated by my employer. But I think I needed to go through doing too much to find out what doing too much does to me, so that I can readjust. And this year I've really felt like I readjusted. I've set a lot better boundaries with what I'm doing and when I see patients, and I think it's better for me. This is the first year I have been in clinical practice where I haven't been in school. And so adjusting to that was a big adjustment. And suddenly I have all of this free time now, where I'm not, staying up till midnight to do homework. But if you are not in school, you're not, burning the midnight oil like I was. Find something that makes you feel good every day. So like I either lift or go climbing every day, and I switch back and forth, and it makes me just feel better, and it does something for me, and I have a goal, and I feel better, and it helps my blood work numbers. My doctor likes. So if if you're a new athletic trainer, you're new into clinical practice, set some dedicated time for yourself every day that where it's just you're focusing on you, and I think that will make your job a lot less stressful, and I think it will make you feel better.
Always good advice and rings true here as well. Uh, this question I'm curious about, because you mentioned a bunch of different things so far in terms of resources, but what has been the most influential resource you have found in your career?
Oh, I think that I need to give another shout out to my mentor, Dr. McLeod. She has been one of the most influential resources I have had in my professional career. I think that throughout my origin story as an athletic trainer, the most similar pattern of people who have been influential or resources have been teachers. The most influential person, I think, to where I'm doing research now is my high school bio research teacher, Dr. Sarah Laux. I think my most influential in grad school is Dr. McLeod in undergrad. The most influential was was Reese Boucher. Reese, the program director of Castleton University's athletic training program. I had a previous mentor at Castleton when I was doing a kind of independent research project that was completely outside of class. And then that professor left, and Reese stepped up and said, I'm not a big researcher, but you need a faculty mentor, and I'll be that faculty mentor for you. Not necessarily her area of expertise, but she did it and she helped me, and I can't thank her and Castleton enough to just allow me to do something on my own that was completely outside of class that I wanted to do, and I feel like not a lot of places would let you do that. Yeah, so it's been a lot of people that have been the influential resources, and I think if you can find those people, um, ask around if they can be a mentor for you. Ask if you can bounce ideas off of them, and you'll find good people.
Agreed with that. Kind of touched on this one a little bit as well, but just to allow you to maybe clarify or whatnot, as an AT in your role, how do you take care of yourself?
Like I said, I go climbing, I lift. I what's really nice is our school has a kind of like software based lifting and PE platform that we use, and so I've been able to put myself as a student and assign myself programs. So I have kind of a whole workout program laid out for me. So I don't have to think about like programming for myself. All right, what am I doing today, tomorrow? Just throws it there for me. And I've increased my vertical 3 inches. I've maxed a couple of bench squat and deadlift, and I maxed clean the other day. And then I think what's been really good with climbing is, I've been consistent with it, and I've gotten able to climb in my rock gym. I boulder mostly, so climb without ropes, kind of low to the ground. I've gotten to, what did I top out at? I did a V3 the other day, so it's there's a V0 to probably V10, and I was able to top out a V3 the other day. So that's kind of how I take care of myself, and how I set personal goals for myself with some of the
Sure.
stuff I do.
Awesome. If you could change or eliminate one thing, it could be a mindset, a modality, a common practice, or whatever of your choosing in athletic training, what would it be?
I feel like this is a hot one, Joel. I don't know about you. Like, this could get me in trouble.
It all depends where people go with it.
Oh gosh, change or eliminate. I mean, I'm sure that, you can tell how I feel about um athletic trainers, and talking about what certain organizations should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and feeling as though the organization leads the way and not necessarily the individual athletic trainer. Um, but I think that I would love to be able to have everyone have the same mindset of, we're in this together and we need to make everything better for everyone else.
I like it. Very well said. Last question. What does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
Well, at a minimum, it means I get paid every 2 weeks.
That's fair.
Um, I think it means that that I get to do a job that not a lot of people get to do. I think it means that um, I really get to help patients, and I think it means that I can, um, kind of related to how I approach research. I can ask questions that researchers want to know the answers to, and they want to have clinicians ask these questions, and I, can collaborate with those researchers, and those in the quote unquote ivory tower of athletic training. And you know I think that um, researchers in athletic training maybe sometimes have difficulty knowing exactly what athletic trainers are interested. And so, reaching out to a researcher, while it might be scary, saying, "Hey, I know you're an expert in this area. I have this question. Do you have anything that could help me?" There are a lot of researchers out there that will respond to you, and um, they might say to your question, "Well, I don't know, and that's an interesting question. Let me get back to you on that." And they may steal your question and make a whole paper on it. But either way, it advances your clinical practice, advances the research. So I think that it means that I get to do what I really like to do. As I mentioned earlier, I found athletic training as a sophomore in high school, and it's kind of all I've wanted to do. And I've got 3 degrees in athletic training. And so, I feel like I'm an athletic trainer through and through. And um, it means that, you know, I get to do what I enjoy to do every day.
Perfect. Well, in closing, if people wanted to connect with you, find you, obviously get to the website, what would be the best ways?
You can find the website atfreeceu.com. You can find me on Twitter at atfreeceu, or you can email my Gmail, atfreeceu@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, sharing a little bit of insight on this, and for all your work and connecting and saving people the time and effort of finding the free CEUs on their own. In addition, not just putting up the website, but auditing it every 6 months. Just such a huge benefit there. Just as you mentioned, going from over 300 down into the 200s. It's just, again, what a time saver and a value to everybody. So thank you from the profession, through me from the profession. But appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, you're welcome, Joel. Good to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Athletic Training Chat featuring Mitchell Barnhart. Check it out, atfreeceu.com. Super clean, easy to navigate site. The auditing is awesome. Helps save you a lot of time on getting into some things that you don't necessarily want to try and find again. So please check that out. Mitchell does a fantastic job with that. As always, thank you to Mueller Sports Medicine for helping us and the profession. It is appreciated beyond words that we can say. And if you're interested in journaling and want a place to maybe start specific to the profession, check out the Athletic Training Daily Journal. We modeled it off of the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, just to give something in a bunch of different realms, 8 of them, to really try and help reflect and potentially grow both professionally and personally. It's something that I wish I would have even had on my radar when I was younger, just to be able to get challenged and think things through a little bit more, and then maybe compare to somebody. So check that out. Free sample at clinicallypress.org/shop. 14-day sample. Check that out, or find it on Amazon and just search Athletic Training Daily Journal. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you next episode.